Good evening. I'm Ezra May, President of the Australian Society of Polish Jews and their Descendants. Welcome. It's been a busy period for us. We had a classical chamber music concert last Thursday with Karolina Michalewicz and Ivo Jednicki performing music from early 20th century Polish Jewish composers. And tonight, we are honoured and pleased to present an evening with Dr Michal Trêbacz, Director of the Jewish Historical Institute in Warsaw. The ASPJ statement of purpose is to preserve and promote the historical and cultural heritage of Jewish life in Poland, and to foster understanding between current and future generations of Polish and Jewish communities. We try to achieve this with three main areas: hosting events, lectures or webinars, engagement with our local Polish community, and activities on a formal diplomatic and governmental level. Some recent examples include not only the concert last week, but a webinar in September in the shadow of March 68. This and many other of our webinars, including Jewish Poland and its role in the Ukraine refugee crisis, Israel and Poland, friends or enemies, with former Polish ambassador to Israel, Agnieszka Majewska, and a panel discussion from the Marek Edelman Dialogue Centre, Guardians of Memory Association and HaKoach regarding Lodge Today, are all available for viewing on our website, polishjews.org.au, as well as copies of our twice-yearly newsletter, Heinz, which features a range of local and international articles of relevance and interest. And we thank Izzy Mamor, nice to see you here, for producing. Next week, the 26th of November, we're hosting a webinar, Discovering Your Heritage with Simple Tools, hosted by Matan Shefi, the query specialist at POLIN Museum from Warsaw. And then on 10th of December, our last webinar for the year is Culture Docs from the Festival team in Krakow, about the current state of contemporary Polish Jewish artists in Poland, particularly post-October 7 and its impact. Just this past week, the ASPJ has met and already formed strong relationships with the newly appointed Acting Ambassador of Poland, Marcin Kowalski, the Consul General of Poland in Sydney, Piotr Rakowski, and Beata Korotova, the Office of Honorary Consul General in Victoria. We've also had productive meetings regarding future cooperation with Zosha Pichanik from POLIN Museum, who returned to Warsaw early today, and with Michał Niewski, the Director of the Association of the Jewish Historical Institute, a long-time friend and regular visitor to Melbourne. Michał headlined our Genealogy Day last year. Lovely to see you here tonight again, Michał. Despite the grand list of selected highlights I just mentioned, the ASPJ is a small volunteer-based organisation, but we are motivated because we believe in our purpose and the value of what we do. So I thank the board for all their efforts. Tonight, the ASPJ hosts Dr Michal Trêbacz, Director of the Jewish Historical Institute, the home of the largest collection of records, documents, testimonies and memoirs of Polish Jews, including the post-World War II registration cards of over 300,000 Polish Jews, and the famous Ringelblum archive from the Warsaw Ghetto, which is currently featuring the underground exhibition at the Holocaust Museum. The mission of the Jewish Historical Institute, from the website, is to spread knowledge about the heritage of 1,000 years of Jewish presence in Poland. The JHI houses both permanent and temporary exhibitions and hosts academic conferences, as well as having an educational and publishing arm. The JHI is both a depository of the memory of the past and a living cultural centre, including hosting the largest Judaic library in Poland with over 85,000 volumes. A special task of the JHI is genealogy, with Michał Niewski features. They also have the largest research team in Poland, dedicated to Jewish Poland. All this sounds very much like the ASPJ, just with a bigger budget. The JHI in Warsaw really is a must-visit for everyone, not only those with Polish Jewish ancestry, but anyone with an interest in Jewish history at all. As a personal anecdote, I visited the JHI in 2018 under the previous director, the late Pavel Spivak. I entered only knowing my father's grandparents' name, or my father's grandfather's names actually, because they were the ones who were named after. But no further back. 2.5 hours later, I left and I saw records going back 8 generations to 1730, almost 300 years of Krakow history, Polish ancestry. I even saw and held in my own hand the post-World War II registration cards of my grandparents, which included pictures of them I hadn't seen before. The archive preservation, education and research work of the JHI, supported by the Association of the JHI, is more than any other single organisation what allows us, the descendants of Polish Jewry, access and knowledge to our history, our heritage and our identity. That's why it's so appropriate for the ASPJ tonight to host an evening with the JHI Director, Michal Trêbacz. And I'll conclude before we hear from Michal with wishes for an enduring peace and security for all, both here and overseas, with a focus on the safety and freedom of Jewish people throughout the world and in Israel.
Thank you for the kind introduction. A couple of the things that I wanted to tell you have already been told, so you need to listen to them once again. I will try to elaborate on the subject a bit. I will speak English, but I can change to Polish if you like. So this is all up to you. Okay. Okay, I will start the lecture. I will tell you a bit about the history of the Institute, about its current activities, and I will elaborate more regarding the collections that we actually hold. Ignacy Schipper, one of the leading historians of interwar Poland, stressed in a conversation with Alexander Donat while they were at the Majdanek concentration camp around 1943 that, quote unquote, everything depends on who transmits our testament to future generation, on who writes the history of this period. History is usually written by the victor. What we know about murdered people is only what their murderers cared to say about them. Should our murderers be victorious? Should they write the history of this war? Our destruction will be presented as one of the most beautiful pages of world history, and future generations will pay tribute to them as dauntless crusaders. Their every word will be taken for gospel, or they may wipe out our memory altogether, as if there had never existed, as if there had never been a Polish Jewry, a ghetto in Warsaw, a Majdanek. And this quotation is, for me, the starting point of the history that happened just when the war was ending, when it was still going in Western Poland. The Eastern Poland was already liberated by the Soviet army, and on August 29, 1944, 5 Polish Jews who had recently returned from hiding places and concentration camps gathered in Lublin to establish a historical commission. Despite the challenging conditions in the newly liberated city, these survivors felt compelled to document the existence of Polish Jewry and their communities during the Nazi occupation. Noah Gruz, a leader of the Central Jewish Historical Commission, that will be Centralna Żydowska Komisja Historyczna in Polish, or Centralne Jüdische Historische Komisje in Yiddish, emphasized the urgency shared by Polish Jewish survivors of the Holocaust when he reported on the Commission's activities in 1946. He said, I quote, unquote, "Every Jew was aware of the fact that he had witnessed a horrific epoch in the history of his nation. If he managed to survive, he is obligated to immortalize not only his personal experiences and suffering, but above all, to document the tragic fate and extermination of 4 million Jews who had died as martyrs in Polish lands at the hands of the Nazi occupiers." This sense of moral obligation, both personal and communal, drove a concentrated effort to preserve the memory of the Holocaust and reconstruct its history. Polish Jews who responded to the Commission's call prepared written testimonies and conducted research despite facing emotional exhaustion, significant material hardship, and physical insecurity. The Central Jewish Historical Commission and the Jewish Society for the Promotion of Fine Arts initiated a search for archival materials in abandoned ghettos and camps, as well as book collections in neglected libraries. Since 1947, this work has been continued by the Jewish Historical Institute, which has become a key depository and collector of these materials. Here on the photo behind me, you can see the building currently housing the Jewish Historical Institute. This is the one on the left of the bottom picture. Was completed in 1936 and served as the headquarters of the Central Judaic Library. Thus, the institute is situated in one of the few remaining Jewish buildings in Warsaw. You can see how it looked like just after the war on the picture above. It was just across the Great Synagogue, and the Great Synagogue, as you probably know, was demolished in May of 1943 as the final act of the oppression over the Jewish uprisers, and the building of the library was put on fire. During the war, this building was in use by the Judenrat of Warsaw. It served as the headquarters of the social welfare department of the Jewish Council. And Emanuel Ringelblum, an important figure from that time, was one of its employees, and the institute is named after in his honor. The collection of main Judaic library was stolen by the Germans, and the building itself, as I said, put on fire. It was renovated shortly after the war, and once again became the headquarters of the scientific institution. And this is something really important when we come to the Jewish Historical Institute. When you are entering something that is not so common in Warsaw. You are entering a building that was a building of the Jewish community before the war, that served as an important building during the war, and is still a building serving to the same, you might say, same purpose. You might, when you enter and you look under your feet, you can see marks of the fire that was there. You can see that there was a fire there actually. So you can feel the history in a very very personal way. So this is something that doesn't happen too often when you come to Warsaw or to other places. The Jewish Historical Institute was established by Jewish survivors after the war. So the Central Jewish Historical Commission was the predecessor of the Jewish Historical Institute. Similar to many other Jewish institutions of that time, originally intended to serve as a research institute, it survived for nearly 80 years right now, even during some of the most challenging periods in post-war Poland, such as the anti-Semitic campaign of 1968. In 1994, an agreement was signed between the Association of the Jewish Historical Institute and the Polish Ministry of Science, which transformed the institute into a state research institution. In the early 2000s, it underwent another transformation, becoming a cultural institution right now. And here you can see the list of the departments of the institute. So the institute has around 80 people working there, less than 80 people working there in two separate branches, you might say, separate departments. So the collections and the program departments are separate, and I will tell you a bit about some of them and some of the activities of the institute. As Ezra already mentioned, we do have the main exhibition, which is called what we've been unable to shout out to the world, and it's devoted to the history of the Ringelblum group, to the Onek Shabbat group. And we present the original documents and objects among the objects is one of the milk cans in which the second part of the archive was hidden, and the documents that we present are also the original documents from the Ringelblum archive, which is held at the Institute. We have temporary exhibitions. They happen twice a year, you might say, and right now there is an exhibition on the subject of the history of the Łódź Ghetto, capturing the ghetto, artistic portraits of everyday life in the Łódź Ghetto. And this is a very special exhibition, I would say, because we tell the history of the Holocaust through paintings mostly and memorabilia. And in this way we try to give those who did not left testimonies, didn't left memoirs, they left only paintings. They left the paintings that they did, they painted them during the war, in the ghetto, and they gave their way to show how they remembered it, how they looked at it, what they thought of it through the painting. So I think this is a very, very interesting way of showing that history, and this is all based on our collection. We have also the traveling exhibition that you can see right now in Melbourne Holocaust Museum. This is also an exhibition more important than life, the underground archive of the Warsaw Ghetto. The name in Melbourne was changed to underground, and I don't remember the rest of it, but this is the same exhibition there. And I really encourage you to go and see the exhibition, because this is, again, a very rare opportunity to see the originals. Because there are around 10, 11 documents sent from the Ringelblum archive, and there is one of the metal boxes in which the first part of the archive was hidden, so custom-made metal boxes from the war that were discovered in 1946 and brought to the Jewish Historical Commission and then to the Jewish Historical Institute. We do have a research department, so around 14 persons working there. There are some main projects that we were doing. One ended this year. It was a project on the encyclopedia of the Warsaw Ghetto, which was published, and it is also available online. So there are hundreds of entries, encyclopedia entries available for our web pages that tell the story of the Warsaw Ghetto. And there is a publication only in Polish that accompanies it. And the other projects were publishing the Polish edition of the whole Ringelblum archive, so the nearly 40 volumes of the documents from the Ringelblum archive were either edited in Polish or translated from English, German, and Hebrew and published. And there is a project of translating them into English, and this is volume 9 of this edition, and now we have 10 volumes that were published to the present day. So yeah, we do have a publication department. We publish around 10 books a year, most of them in Polish, and they're really good publications in terms of how books are being edited and printed and published in Polish. So these are books of people who work at the Institute, but also people from outside who would like to have a good publishing house, and we are the best in terms of the Jewish history in Poland. Ezra also mentioned that there is a genealogy department, and I won't be going further into it, because this is really a place to go when you want to research your family history. You can do it by visiting us or by writing to the genealogy department, and they will answer you in a perfect way, I hope. Yeah, and I wanted to say about 2 events that we do that are really important and that tell a lot about what we do and how this history looks. So the first is the March of Remembrance, which takes place every year on the 22nd of July to commemorate the deportations, the liquidation of the great deportation action in the Warsaw Ghetto, the great liquidation action from the Warsaw Ghetto, and this is a very unique event because this is an event that was created by the Jewish Historical Institute. We are the main organizer. There are no officials there, so this is a very grassroots initiative which gathers around 1,000 people every year to come and walk for the streets of Warsaw to commemorate the victims of the Warsaw Ghetto. And this is something that you cannot see in any other city in Poland, because there are often commemoration of the liquidations of the ghetto. This is a common thing that happens, but never it attracts so many people, and it never attracts so many ordinary people who would like to come and pay their tribute. So this is a very unique thing and a wonderful thing also. And the second thing that we do, the second event that we do every year is anniversary of the riot in the Treblinka death camp, which took place on the 2nd of August 1943, and every year together with the Museum of Treblinka and the state authorities, we organize these commemorations, we organize transport to the site. There are speeches, this is more official initiative, but this is a very important one because Treblinka is the biggest Jewish cemetery in Poland, so this is something that's really should be remembered. And right now a new building of the museum is being erected, and the Jewish Historical Institute is going to prepare the main exhibition there, so we are going to be responsible for that. As I already told you, that the JHI archives hold significant importance for studying the history of Polish Jews, and over 60% of those holdings are related to the Second World War. The core of the collection consists of documents collected and completed by the Jewish Historical Commission between 1944 and 1950. Some of the most valuable collections include the underground archive of the Warsaw Ghetto, commonly known as the Ringelblum Archive, early historical testimony. So this is a picture of, on the bottom you can see how they found the first part of the archive in the 1946, and the upper picture is a picture from 1950, from December, when they discovered the second part, which was in the milk canes. So this is the part of the. So this was the part of the Ringelblum archive, and there was a project run by the Jewish Historical Commission to gather testimonies of the Holocaust survivors, and they managed to collect over 7,000 testimonies and early testimonies of the Holocaust survivors and the documents from Jewish organizations established after German occupation, such as the Central Committee of Polish Jews. These materials provide insight into the conditions of devastated Polish communities and their efforts to revive Jewish life in post-war Poland. The archive holds valuable collections of registers that include names for camps, ghettos, and post-war orphanages, along with records of survivors and identity documents. These materials are particularly useful for genealogical research conducted at the Institute. And the Central Committee of Polish Jews had many responsibilities. It was an organization responsible for the life of the Jewish inhabitants in Poland, including organizing, provisioning networks, establishing orphan centers, assisting repatriants, and even building schools. It quickly became evident that one of the primary tasks should be maintaining a registry of survivors, and this is the registry that Esther mentioned. To address this, the committee established the Records and Statistics Desk, which was responsible for three things: estimating the size of Jewish population in Polish lands, identifying the largest concentration of this population, and describing its demographic and sociological structure. The goal was achieved by conducting a census of Jewish population. Registration of Holocaust survivors was voluntary and primarily took place within the borders of the Second Polish Republic. The resulting database contains nearly 300,000 forms supplemented by data provided by Jews located in the territory covered by the Central Committee. Apart from that exception situation, records were also not kept outside of the walls of the delegations and headquarters. However, there were exceptions. So we have some forms that were gathered, some people who were registered in Sweden, nearly over 4,000 people, some in Italy, in Belgium, in the UK. Additionally, there's a few from Switzerland, France, and Germany. It's also a big group because it's also from not only from the Germany at all as a whole, but also from the camp in Bergen-Belsen. And there are some forms from the USSR, from the Soviet Union. But those 300,000, some people registered a couple of times. So this is not. It doesn't say that so many people did survive. Just say that so many people did register. In 1946, the registration began using standardized forms. So before that, every delegator, every worker of the Central Committee of this desk of statistics had their own registered forms, and in spring of 1946, they decided to standardize the forms, and instruction had 17 questions apart from the obvious information about the first name, the surname, the maiden's name of mother, the names of father. It also added the information about occupation, about education, about how the individual survived, about possible arrests, blackmails, imprisonments, detailed on methods of self-financing during the war, allowing for a single response. So for example, it was personal funds supported from relatives, friends, Jews, no Jews, or social funds, as well as the option to specify another source. And any documents that they're possessed that could relate to the marking of Jews, along with the information that they're willing to share. And list of relatives that they have that know that were still living in Poland and those who were not living in Poland, and notes if anybody would like to add something to that. So these are the examples of those forms that the Central Committee gathered. But the archive is much bigger than what I told you. The documents prior to 1939 encompass important papers concerning Jewish communities. Among the files of the Jewish religious community in Krakow, there is the Statute of Israeli Congregation along with the successive revisions, as were archival files from association during the 1914-1939. We have documents from the Free City of Krakow from the 19th century, additional records of charity organizations, foundations, and we have the documents from the Podgórze, so the part of the Krakow that became a part of Krakow after the First World War. We have documents from Breslau, so Wrocław, from before the war, and those documents found were brought to the Jewish Historical Institute because they were found also easier. They were found in Wrocław in one of the buildings of the cemetery. The Germans were probably preparing them to be transported outside of Poland, but they didn't manage to do so. There are various materials from the Jewish community in Berlin, so including the documents confirming the privileges granted by to the Brandenburg rabbis, and certain materials from the 18th century even. A particularly noteworthy collection are the documents donated to the Jewish Historical Institute by the Polish Consulate in Haifa, and this is the collection that includes emigration passports of Jews who left for Palestine before 1939. So this is a really big collection. Most of it was digitalized, so you can access it online as well. And the library, yeah. I would say that we have more than Ezra said. I would say that we have around 100,000 volumes at the library. And the collection is based on volumes gathered between 1944 and 1941 in the Central Jewish Library. It includes fragments recovered from the main Judaic library, a few, the libraries of the Jewish Theological Seminary in Breslau and Warsaw, and Yeshiva of the Sages of Lublin, as well as other private and public Jewish libraries. This collection of manuscripts and old prints features items from libraries and archives in Warsaw, Berlin, Vienna, Prague, Wrocław, that were looted by the Germans and hidden in Lower Silesia. Subsequently rediscovered after 1945. The library currently holds over, as I said, 100,000 volumes, including more than 2,500 periodicals dating from the early 19th century to current titles, and a rare book collection consisting of manuscripts and prints published before 1800s. And one of these books you can see here on the picture. It's a great book of commandments from 1488, and it was discovered in the institute a couple of months before. And when I said that it was discovered, this is because about 20,000 books were never catalogued. So we still don't know what is among those 20,000 volumes that we have. It's probably mostly the Yiddish and Yiddish novels from the early 19th century and early 20th century, but you never know. As in this example, maybe there will be a gem like this among them. And the collection is still expanding. So yeah, this is really beautiful. This was, I think that there are about 20 exemplaries around the world of a book like this. Of this particular book left. This is, I was told that this is a lot in terms of such a rare books even, but this is the one that is in the best condition. It didn't have the last page, but the condition of the rest is really really perfect. Yeah, and the art collection. The collection, which includes 15,000 Jewish-related items, is recognized both in Poland and internationally. It features ritual objects, paintings, sculptures, graphics, primarily collected by the, mentioned by me in the beginning, Jewish Society for Promotion of Fine Arts, which was re-established after the Second World War, but was shut by the communist regime in 1950. The collection became part of the collection of the Institute. Additionally, the collection contains historical memorabilia, mostly consisting of items from the ghettos and camps. This includes symbols of discrimination, such as armbands and patches featuring the Star of David, as well as signs, notices, and food ration cards. Most of the collection was acquired in the immediate years following the Second World War, with later additions coming from donation and occasionally purchased due to lack of funds. The items from the collection are also loaned to other museums for exhibition, both in Poland and abroad. So just to give you the exemplaries that I have from past few months, we will be giving objects for an exhibition in Berlin. We are going to be giving our objects are part of the exhibition right now in POLIN Museum, and will be most of the objects that will be presented at the temporary exhibition in POLIN that will take place in spring of next year, that will be devoted to the post-war Jewish history in Poland. And probably the objects will be also, and documents from the Renewable Archive will be part of the Warsaw Ghetto Museum, at least a few of them. And there are ritual objects, which is a really large collection, and I won't go into details. I can give you the names of the people who were those who did those objects. These are private, either a person, a goldsmith, or factory-made objects. And alongside, as I said, the handmade items, the collection features mass production objects, including silver-plated Hanukkah lamps, spice containers, and candlesticks from Warsaw factories. And the textile collection is something that is really beautiful, and it consists of about 80 parochets, which is particularly interesting piece with this particularly interesting piece that you can see on the right. This is a parochet from 1774, again from Lower Silesia, and it depicts, if you look carefully, it shows the moment of Isaac's sacrifice. So this is not often placed on parochets. And there's also an object that's worth mentioning because it's a fragment of a Torah ark, likely from a small Warsaw synagogue. There were around 400 synagogues in Warsaw before the war, but none of them survived, and very few traces remain today. So this is one of those traces, and this ark is not only an aesthetic value, but also carries significant symbolic meaning, as many of those objects. Among the significant paintings of the 19th century, we have a painting of Maurycy Gottlieb, who is regarded the first professional Polish Jewish painter, and additionally we have a copy of his self-portrait in Arab costume. You can see it on the left, right here. On the left, made by his brother Marcin Gottlieb, although the original has been lost. Another masterpiece from this period is, for example, Artists and Peace Muse by Samuel Kirchenberg. So we have paintings of the most important painters, Jewish painters from the 19th and also 20th century, and the 20th century is the majority of the paintings that we have. And a specific collection that is interesting and that we are using right now is contains of memorabilia from the Łódź Ghetto. In 1939, it was the second largest Jewish population in Poland, and as you know, there's a second largest ghetto there also. And the fact that there are so many paintings and so many artistic objects is due to the fact that in May and June of 1942, the Łódź office of the Frankfurt-based Nazi Party Institute for the Study of Jewish Questions set up a scientific department within the Łódź Ghetto. Its primary objective was to create a museum that depicted Jewish life following the Nazi ideology. This department employed 35 Jewish painters, sculptors, and graphic artists. Notable artists included Vincent Brauner, Herr Schilis, Józef Kovner, and Israel Lajzerowicz, whose artworks illustrated everyday life and significant events in the ghetto. Additionally, the documentation required by the Germans serves as a testament to life in the ghetto. And last but not least, I have one department of which Ezra did not mention, and this is the documentation of historical sites, or documentation of Jewish heritage department actually. And the department was primarily dedicated to collecting and publishing information about historical sites of Jewish material culture, specifically focusing on Jewish quarters, synagogues, and cemeteries. The information includes detailed description, maps, photographs, films, and sound recording that depict the Jewish life, the Jews in Polish lands, encompassing both large cities and smaller towns. These accounts are gathered from diaries, historical sources, and publication in the press. The collection contains approximately 40,000 photographs taken from 1860. It documents Jewish cultural objects that have survived, including headstones from around 400 cemeteries. Additionally, there are photographs of about 320 synagogues and houses of prayer that still exist in Poland today. One of the department's tasks is to gather the documentation about the historical sites that have been destroyed. And this collection also holds a lot of photographs from the Jewish towns before the war, but it also holds a large collection of documenting the life during the German occupation. So photos from the Warsaw ghetto, from the Łódź ghetto are the two largest collections that we have, and so this is a really also one of the most important things that we hold, that show, even though that pictures were taken in 1950s, 1960s, they sometimes show part of history that does not exist anymore, or doesn't exist in the form that it existed 60, 70 years before. Okay, and I wanted to finish with by saying that you can compare the Jewish Historical Institute to many institutions. You may compare it to the Melbourne Holocaust Museum, you can compare it to the EVO, you can compare it to Yad Vashem, you can compare it to United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. You can compare it, but you cannot match it. There is none of these institutions has those all things that I was telling you about. So none of them has a historical building, and just to say a few words that what they don't have. So the historical building, a collection, and this long time history of research, starting not from the moment that I told you about, from the 1944, but starting way before that with Szymon Anski, and later on with the research done by EVO Zamlers and by those who were educated in interwar Poland in the spirit of EVO, like Ringo Blum was, and others that continued his work. Thank you. Yeah, I can take questions, yes, of course.
So thank you, Michal, for that excellent overview of the wide scope of the JHI. And as you said, it's very much, as I said, our heritage and our identity. For those with Polish Jewish ancestry, it's the place to go to. So Michal's kindly going to take some questions if anybody has anything. Andrew.
Yeah, quite a few years ago I visited and with the help of Eurasian at the time, I'm a child of Holocaust survivors from Częstochowa, they were slave laborers in Hasak-Belzera in that camp. He actually showed me the original German slave labour cards, a card for each slave labour, and I have certified copies at home. Apart from that slave labour camp, Hasak-Belzera in Częstochowa, does you have any other records from slave labour camps similar to that?
We have from Warsaw, for example.
Oh, okay.
But that's an interesting question, because we a few weeks ago there was a visit of Rolat family, who, as you know, are from Częstochowa, and they came there by surprise to us, and we wanted to gather the documents from Częstochowa to show them. So we were able to find periodicals from Częstochowa, we were able to find books printed in Częstochowa, the documents from the wartime, etc., etc. So this a lot to be found. But for sure there is from Kłaszów or New Kraków,
Which was a big camp.
Which was a big camp with documentation from Kłaszów, and I cannot recall any others, but maybe there are others as well. But if in terms of the databases, we are on our own needs and for the needs of those who come to do research, to do genealogical work, genealogical research. We do collect also information that were gathered from other sources that we know of persons who were in the camps, and the information could be found in other archives, but we collect that as well to help ourselves and to help those who come to the Institute seeking for help.
I'm just curious, where is the funding for your institute come from? Is it government funded or is it philanthropic?
Most of the Institute activities is government funded, and there's a small percentage funded by the Tauli Philanthropies through the Association of the Jewish Historical Institute, and the rest is are grants like from the Claims Conference for the publication of the Ringelblum archive in English. So we do try to pursue other sources of financing, because this is not an easy situation to have only one source, because we are dependent on the Polish government. So this is not a thing that is safe for the institution. Yeah, so this is a part that we started to do more vigorously when I came to be the director, and we'll see how it goes. Yeah.
Our institute navigated political pressure in modern day Poland.
Okay, a good question. Okay, I personally do not feel any political pressure right now on the activities of the institute, and I think that there is no political pressure in terms of anything else. I think that there is a slight backlash of what was happening in the previous 9 years. I don't know how long it was with the previous government, and but I think that institutions that are so big, like the Jewish Historical Institute, like POLIN Museum, it is very difficult to change the course in which we go. So I think that before I came there, there were some pressures on with which institutions should the institute collaborate, with whom they should collaborate, and what subjects should be promoted and which shouldn't be promoted. And I believe that there's this, every researcher is a free person. They can research whatever they want. If they made fools of themselves, then making fools of themselves. And there will be the name of the institute accompanying that. I will try to prevent that, but I don't know if I will be able to.
Thank you for a very interesting talk. I wanted to ask you about whether I've been searching for several years for the story of what's happened to my grandfather's brothers, who were last known of in the Warsaw Ghetto. And I've been trying and searching the Eurasian archives and JRI and everything I can find that's digital remotely, and I just can't find any trace of them at all. Do you have access to any other, is there likely to be any other archives around, or is everything sort of gone up in smoke?
I don't know, it's hard to answer because I don't know what happened to them. You can ask, you can write to the institute, to the genealogy department, they will answer you if they have anything on them. So this is the only way that I can answer the question, because it's really hard to get to know what happened to people who were in the Warsaw Ghetto. In the vast majority, we don't know the names, so this is a great problem that we face in terms of the victims of the Warsaw Ghetto and those who perished in Treblinka. So we know that 900,000 people were murdered in Treblinka, and around 120,000 names were discovered of those victims. So you never know. There's a chance that you will never learn their fate. Yeah.
With the building of the, sorry I can't get up. With the building of the new Get Out Writing Museum,
Yes.
what involvement will the institution have in that in the museum?
They wanted part of our collection to present on their main exhibition, because they're in the process of creating a building, and in the process of simultaneously they have to work on their main exhibition, so they wanted some objects from our collection.
Right. Would that be on loan? Or,
That would be a loan, yeah. A short-term loan. I don't know what they are going to do with it, but they need to protect them.
okay.
They need to be very cautious.
You mentioned Treblinka. I've been working with Paweł Savitsky, who won this year's POLIN Award,
Yeah.
and rightfully so. You mentioned they discovered 120,000 plus or minus names of those who perished in Treblinka. Their goal is to get as many as the 900,000 they can. Have they actually exhausted the resources that JIT has relating to Trębacz? So I know they work with you and they work with numerous organisations around the world. Have they actually?
I think that's not a question to me. I don't know what resources they get. I think that they got a lot of institutions and got the information that they could get from them, but I don't know what they received from the institute. I think that this would be the very obvious place to start the research. So I think that they did the part that they could.
They have, what they told me when I spoke to them before I left Poland, is they have discovered another 20,000 names, which they're actually going through now to sort out details and verify to then put onto the database.
Okay.
They do amazing.
Does the Historical Institute keep archives of the things that happened post-war, like the Jewish school, Descendants, etc.? Do they keep those archives as well, or it's only during the war?
No, we do have a lot of documents that are were created by the Jewish institutions after the war. Either were state or private owned, we have the files there at the institute. So the registry cards are part of this collection, and information of orphanages and etc. There's also at the institute, and periodics from the post-war. So we did collect post-war as well. We do not collect the contemporary Jewish life.
Now I'm talking about just posted up to 68 or whatever.
Those we have.
Do you collect or have information about the Jews who were in the displaced persons camp in other countries like Germany?
We could have that via other sources, like the registry cards, or we have access to IRS and other databases which hold those informations. We do not have the archives of the displaced person camps at the institute.
How much is known about what was looted and destroyed by the Nazis? Is that, or is it just lost to history, all those records?
No, we know what was lost and what was never found. So the things that were looted and scattered all around Poland. So we know that, for example, I think that last week we got an email from the university library in Poznan, so in a city in western Poland, that they found part of a collection from the main Judaic library that they have in their holdings. We are not the successor of the main Judaic library, unfortunately, because then we could get those books. But they are being found all over the world. There's a project done by an institution, an NGO from Lublin called Brama Gdańska, and they are having a digital web page trying to find where the books from the Hasidic organization, Hasidic library, Sage of Lublin, are being found all over the world. So they are looking for books in libraries, also in our library, which has stamps from this library, and they're putting the information online. So this is a process that is being done by different institutions, and it was done by the state. In terms of what was destroyed during the Second World War, so we know what we have lost, what was looted and what we have lost. Sometimes even I know that the museums or the archives know where some objects or some documents are, but the institution in question says that it's not true. So trying to find where the documents are and from where they are, it's a great endeavor. It's an interesting project in terms of looking where they were looted, how they found themselves in different institutions. So this is a very interesting process.
Just curious, I'm from Poland, because how much Jewish population remains there, and what is their attitude there amongst people?
Attitude towards what?
Jewish people.
Polish people towards the Jewish people.
No, the Christian people or Jewish people. I just want to know how the attitudes have changed.
I don't know how many, 7,000? 7,000?
You're
15?
asking how long is a piece of string?
15,000.
I put between 20 and 30, depending on whether you are defining a halakhic Jew or a non-halakhic Jew.
Last census presented 15,000 people who have Jewish identity.
Okay, so that answers the question. It's easier for me to answer was the Christian towards the Jewish population. I would say that's similar to the rest of the Europe. We don't have the Muslim population there, so this is not so aggressive and not so visible. But in terms of the approach of people, I would say that it changes as it changes all over Europe. So when it comes for the left wing orientated people, the parties, which are very small in Poland in comparison to Western Europe. Nevertheless, they are the same as in the Western Europe. And people asked if what's their attitude towards Jews. They probably would say that they don't care. But if you would ask questions like I know that have been asked by scholars. Would you like to have a Jew as a neighbor, or what would you do if your daughter or son would marry a Jewish person? Then the attitude changes. So this when in terms of cultural distance between the two populations, I think it's getting further from each other in terms of the cultural distance.
Escalated in any way since October the 7th?
Not so much. Not so much. I don't recall any of any attacks on Jewish property. There was the synagogue in Warsaw was put on fire. They tried to put it on fire, but they didn't manage to. But I don't know if it counts for an anti-Semitic act or this was just an act of vandalism. I don't know the person. Yeah, I don't know if he was aware of what he was doing. So this is not like this. I haven't heard of any attacks on Jewish people on the streets, even though they're wearing yarmulkes or something like this. And there are some acts of vandalism, as always.
Demonstrations at universities as well.
Very small one, and there were forced out of the university. Actually, in Warsaw University, they were forced out of the campus.
As well.
What?
One was kicked out of Poland as well. She had the Israeli flag instead of the Star of David. She had a kill Jews or something on the flag. She was a Norwegian student. She was deported within a week.
Seriously, I know the case. So there are demonstrations as elsewhere in Europe, but smaller ones and fewer than elsewhere. There are some graffiti, anti-Israeli graffiti, and for sure there is something that we did not observe earlier. So anti-Israeli attitude among Poles would be observed. I think that if you would ask about Israel, there would be anti-Israeli, and it's hard always to say if it's part of anti-Semitism or this is not a part of anti-Semitism. I don't know what people understand by this, but this is a gate to anti-Semitism for sure. Being anti-Israeli, anti-Zionist, it's a gate to be anti-Semitic as well. The Institute did not observe any acts of vandalism or any acts of people who, protested or something like this. I know that the POLIN Museum is facing a lot of internet attacks, and this is a problem. So yeah, this example. But I don't know how much of this is done by real people or how much is done by the Russian bots, because this is the case in Poland. This is connected always with some sort of Russian bots. Yeah.
What I just want to mention is that unfortunately here, all the Jewish institutions have to have guards. In Poland, as far as I know, Jewish institutions don't have to have guards in front of
No, they do. The Jewish communities for years had guards, and the area was protected. And cultural institutions also have people working for them, like JCC or the POLIN Museum or the Institute do have guards, because this is also required by the law to have. This is required by the law for the cultural institutions to have, and those private also do want to have some sort of protection. So even if they are going, I don't know, to have a picnic by the Vistula River, the JCC brings guards with them. So this is not such a safe situation.
Schools and synagogues, they have guards as well.
Yeah, of course.
Because my mother was in Warsaw, I'm just wondering, is that database which you mentioned searchable online?
No, it's not. But if you write to the institute, they will answer you to your query. Because we have the list, it's not published. Because of the personal data, we cannot publish the personal data, so we cannot publish. So this maybe answer a lot of your questions. When you look for persons, it's often not allowed by the Polish law, by the European law, to publish those information, because they are private information of people who might be still living. So someone that maybe wouldn't like to be enlisted as a person who was in Russia, for example.
Michał, can I ask you, what is the exact current status of that law that prevents people publicly saying that Poles had a collaboration or were involved in some way with the...
Yeah, it died a few years ago. Nobody's getting back to that. It died when it died a few years ago. And nothing has books.
No. Or was it being repealed?
No, it was repealed. It was repealed. Yeah, it wasn't even. It wasn't put into.
I don't think it came into force.
It came into force?
No, I don't think it
I think it didn't come into force. The protests created a situation in which the Polish government started negotiating with the Jewish organization of Israel at that time, and they got some. I don't know. They came to agreement. It was a draft, and it ended with some sort of a mutual declaration between the Netanyahu and Polish Prime Minister.
Yeah.
So he went there, and they had a mutual declaration that no, the Poles were not responsible for the Holocaust, said Netanyahu, and it is not okay to say that the Poles were implicated in the Holocaust on this scale, and this is a thing that done by the Germans. It ended like this. It was a horror. We faced the consequences up to date. Today, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We look forward to seeing you back in Australia, if not in Warsaw.
Yeah, sure. Please come. I would love to be